Marina Costa was 34 years old and had worked as a cleaning assistant at Tavares Investments for almost 2 years. She always arrived with her uniform neatly pressed, her hair tied back, never drawing attention to herself, exactly the way she preferred it. She was a widow. Her husband Eduardo had worked as an electrician for a construction company. He died in an accident on a job site 4 years earlier, when a scaffold collapsed during routine maintenance. Marina was 30 at the time, and Beatrice, their daughter, was only 3. From one day to the next, Marina found herself alone, without her husband's salary, without enough life insurance to cover more than a few months of rent, and with a small child to raise. She never had time to properly process her grief. She had to work. She took the first job that came along, cleaning in a commercial building. And from there, through a co-worker's recommendation, she got a position at Tavares Investments, a wealth management company with offices in the city's financial district. The job was stable. It paid on time. It included a transportation allowance and, most importantly, health insurance. Something that, to Marina, was worth more than any raise, because Beatrice had been born with a rare respiratory condition, a form of congenital bronchiectasis that required constant medical monitoring, weekly respiratory therapy, and, during more serious crises, hospitalizations. Marina organised her entire life around that. She worked mornings at Tavares from 7 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. At night, she did cleaning jobs in apartments at a nearby condominium to supplement her income and cover the extra cost of the medications that the basic insurance plan did not cover. She slept very little. She rarely went out with friends. She had learned in practice that asking for help was a luxury she could not afford, because in her mind, asking for help meant admitting she was not managing. And somehow that felt like a betrayal of her husband's memory, because he used to say, "The two of us can handle anything." But over the last 2 months, something had changed in Marina's routine. She had been arriving late to work, not 5 minutes late, sometimes 40 minutes, sometimes an entire hour. And in the office of an investment fund, where punctuality was almost a religion, that did not go unnoticed for long. Before we continue, if you enjoy real stories about ordinary people facing situations that seem bigger than they are, subscribe to the channel now and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Every week, I bring you a new story like this. Now come back with me to the office of Tavares Investments, because what happened to Marina over the next few months will surprise you. At the office, the comments started quietly and then grew, the way hallway gossip always grows, slowly at first, then far too quickly. Juliana, the receptionist, was the first to notice. "Have you noticed Marina is always rushing off at 6 in the morning to the other side of town?" she said one day in the elevator, not speaking to anyone in particular, but loudly enough for 2 people to hear. Another employee from the finance department raised an eyebrow when he heard about it. "Do you think she has another job? She shouldn't, right? She signed an exclusivity clause in her contract." Little by little, the rumour grew and gained details no one could confirm. Someone said they had seen Marina getting into a taxi in an upscale neighbourhood in the morning, before her shift. Which was strange, because she clearly did not have the money to take taxis every day. Someone else commented that she seemed different in recent months. More tired, more distracted, sometimes with red, swollen eyes, as if she had cried all night. The version that gained the most strength in the office was the simplest and, at the same time, the cruelest. That Marina was slacking off, that she had found something on the side, maybe another job, maybe something worse, and that she was only keeping her formal job because of the health insurance, no longer caring about the work itself. Carlos, her direct supervisor, was a rule-following man, the kind who deeply believed in processes and hierarchy. He was not cruel by nature, but he also did not have the habit of questioning the reason behind things. He simply recorded whatever was outside the standard. He had already placed 3 formal warnings in Marina's record. The first, a month and a half earlier, for being 50 minutes late. The second, 3 weeks later, for being nearly an hour late. The third, 10 days earlier, when Marina arrived at 9 in the morning for a shift that started at 7. In a quick meeting with Human Resources, Carlos said, "I have nothing against Marina personally, but rules are rules. If this continues, the 4th warning will result in termination for cause, according to company policy." No one in the office asked Marina directly what was happening. No one asked whether she needed help. Judgment ran behind her back, in a collective whisper that grew every time she passed through the hallway with her cleaning cart. Head down, too exhausted to respond to what she imagined they were thinking. It was in that scenario that her name reached, in a completely unexpected way, the desk of the company's owner himself. Leave a comment below. Do you think the reason for Marina's tardiness was what everyone in the office believed, or is there something we still don't know? Write your guess in the comments. I'll read the most interesting answers at the end of the video. Now, before we get to the revelation, I need to tell you who Ricardo Tavares was, because his story matters too. Ricardo Tavares was 47 years old and the founder of Tavares Investments, a company he had built from scratch over 2 decades. He came from a middle-class family without any inherited wealth. He graduated in economics with a partial scholarship and worked at 3 different banks before saving enough capital to open his own fund. He was not the type to get involved in day-to-day operational matters. He had managers and supervisors for exactly that reason, and he trusted them. But Ricardo silently carried an experience that had deeply shaped the way he saw certain kinds of suffering. 4 years earlier, his youngest son Pedro was born premature at only 28 weeks of gestation. He spent 42 days in the neonatal ICU at Albert Sabin Hospital. Ricardo and his wife Camila lived that entire period between work and the hospital, sleeping only a few hours, not knowing on many days whether their son would survive until the next morning. Pedro survived. Today he was 4 years old and a healthy child, full of energy. But that period had left Ricardo with a sensitivity he rarely spoke about in the corporate environment, because he knew deeply what it was like to live with the fear of losing a child and what it meant to keep functioning, to keep working, while the whole world seemed to be hanging by a thread. After that experience, Ricardo and Camilla decided to donate part of the company's resources every year to the renovation and maintenance of the pediatric wing at Albert Sabin, the same hospital where Pedro had been saved. It was exactly that connection that, without anyone planning it, placed Marina's name on Ricardo's desk. It was a Tuesday when his personal phone rang with an unknown number. It was a hospital social worker trying to confirm corporate health insurance coverage information for an underage patient admitted to the pediatric wing, a girl named Beatrice Costa. The call, due to a protocol error in the hospital system, had been routed to the contact listed as the main corporate donor instead of the human resources department of the employer company. Ricardo, intrigued and troubled by the urgency in the social worker's voice, asked for the name of the child's mother. Marina Costa, she replied. The name meant nothing to him at first, but when he asked human resources internally whether there was an employee with that name, he discovered that yes, there was. And he also discovered that this same employee was one warning away from being terminated for cause. Curious, uncomfortable, and perhaps moved by something he himself would not have been able to fully explain, Ricardo decided to speak personally with Marina before the dismissal process moved forward. Carlos was surprised when he received Ricardo's direct request. Before formalizing Marina Costa's 4th warning, I want to speak with her personally. Today, after work. Carlos did not question it. He simply prepared the full report, dates, times, previous warnings, and left it on the table in the 10th floor meeting room. Marina was informed through a short message delivered by Juliana, the receptionist herself. Mr. Ricardo wants to speak with you after work in his office. To Marina, that could only mean one thing. Her heart began racing hours before the scheduled time. She spent the afternoon trying to keep her composure, cleaning the same glass panels twice, without really paying attention to what she was doing. When the clock struck 6, she had already mentally decided what she would say. A short apology, without drama, because she knew she had no argument that could justify the delays without revealing everything. And revealing everything meant opening a vulnerability she had been hiding for months. She went up the 10 floors thinking about how she would pay the bills the following month without that salary, thinking about how she would find another job with hours flexible enough for her to keep taking Beatrice to the hospital, thinking above all about how she would tell her daughter that they might have to move somewhere cheaper. When she reached the office door, she saw Ricardo standing with his back turned, looking out the window over the city. "Sit down, Marina. We need to talk about your tardiness," he said, repeating the sentence that opened this story. Marina sat in the chair facing his desk, her hands clasped in her lap. Carlos's warning report turned towards her, like a sentence already written. "We are reaching the most important moment of this story. If you still haven't left a like, do it now. It helps the video reach many more people, And if you want to know firsthand when I post the next story like this, comment, "I want it" below. Now let's go to the moment that changes everything. "I know I've been arriving late," Marina began, before he could say anything, her voice trembling slightly at first, but becoming steadier as she spoke. "And I understand if you need to fire me. I need to explain, even if it doesn't change the outcome." Ricardo said nothing. He only made a small gesture with his hand, asking her to continue. "My daughter Beatrice has had a respiratory condition since she was born. 2 months ago she had a serious crisis and had to be admitted to the pediatric ICU at Albert Sabin. I don't have family in the city. My parents live in the countryside and don't have the means to come help me. I don't have anyone to leave her with before dawn, so every day, before coming to work, I go to the hospital, stay with her as long as I possibly can, and then rush here so I don't lose my job completely. Sometimes I don't make it in time. Sometimes she has a crisis right when I need to leave, and I simply can't leave her alone in that condition." She took a deep breath, holding back tears with visible effort. "I didn't want to request leave because I'm afraid of losing the health insurance right when she needs it the most. And I didn't tell anyone at the office because I don't want pity, and I don't want people thinking I'm using it as an excuse. I just wanted to keep working, to do my job well, and to solve this alone, the way I've always solved things." Ricardo remained silent for a moment that seemed to last forever, looking at her with an expression Marina could not fully decipher. It was not pity, it was something closer to recognition. Then he opened a drawer in his desk and took out a small laminated card from Albert Sabin Hospital, an old visitor badge, worn around the edges, from the same paediatric wing where Beatrice was hospitalized. "My wife and I donated to renovate that wing last year," he said softly, almost to himself. "My son Pedro was born at 28 weeks. He spent 42 days hospitalized in the exact same unit where your daughter is now. I remember every wall in that hallway." Marina looked at him, not fully understanding where this was going, but feeling for some reason that the ground beneath her feet had stopped shaking. "I am not going to fire you, Marina," he continued, placing the badge back in the drawer. "And HR is going to cancel those warnings today. But I need to ask you something. With complete honesty, why did you never ask for help? Why did you choose to carry all of this alone, hidden, risking your own job? If this story's moving you, leave your like now. It helps the video reach more people who need to hear this today. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been through a similar situation where you felt ashamed or afraid to ask for help, even though you needed it? Let's finish the story with what happened after that conversation. Marina did not have an easy answer to give at that moment. She stayed silent for a few seconds, organizing her thoughts before replying. "I grew up learning that asking for help was a sign of weakness. My mother always told me to solve my own problems without bothering anyone, and after Eduardo died, that idea became even stronger, as if asking for help meant admitting I couldn't take care of Beatrice alone, that I was failing as a mother." Ricardo listened to everything without interrupting. When she finished, he did not try to fix it with a ready-made motivational speech. Instead, he did something practical, objective, the kind of thing only someone who has gone through similar suffering knows actually helps. First, he formally adjusted Marina's starting time, creating flexibility of up to 2 hours at the beginning of her shift, which could be made up throughout the day without the need for constant justification. Later, that benefit was extended to any employee in a similar family caregiving situation. Second, he personally directed the company's benefits department to review Beatrice's medical coverage, including access to a leading pediatric pulmonology specialist in the city, a doctor the company's basic plan did not cover, but the executive plan did. Third, and this was a gesture Marina only discovered weeks later, by chance, during a conversation with HR, Ricardo authorized the company's finance department to cover the cost of a paid part-time caregiver, someone who could stay with Beatrice on appointment days or during crises, precisely so Marina would not have to choose between her job and her daughter. When another director later questioned why he was doing so much for a cleaning employee, Ricardo answered in a way that was recorded in the company's internal meeting minutes and, according to those who were in the room, silenced any further questioning. Because 4 years ago, someone could have asked me the same thing about my son, and I would not have had a good answer. The difference between Marina and me was never character. It was luck. 3 months later, Beatrice was officially discharged from intensive follow-up care, with her condition stabilised and a maintenance plan that no longer required frequent hospitalisations. Marina remained at the company, never again needing to hide anything from anyone, and never receiving another warning. In the office, the rumour that had once spread freely gave way to a more respectful silence. The kind that only appears when people realise they judged too quickly someone who was, in truth, simply fighting to survive with dignity. Carlos, the supervisor who had recorded the 3 warnings, came to Marina weeks later to personally apologise, something he had never done before with any employee. "I followed the rules," he said, "but I should have asked the reason before following the rules." Stories like this remind us that most of the time, what we see from the outside is only the tip of something far more difficult than we imagine. People rarely reveal the weight they are carrying, and that does not mean the weight does not exist. If this video touched you, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a comment below. Do you believe more companies and more people should act the way Ricardo acted that day? I'll see you in the next video.